Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's event, Celebrate Native American and Indigenous Voices. I am so excited to be with you all today, and I wanted to say Osio, Mandi Harris Dagwada, Chi Chalagi. Hello, my name is Mandi Harris, and I am a Cherokee Nation citizen, a children's librarian, a PhD candidate at the University of Washington Information School, and I have the absolute joy of asking these brilliant creators all of my most curious children's librarian questions about their craft, about the wonderful stories they are sharing with us all, and about the vibrant community of children's literature creators. But first, I have a few brief housekeeping notes. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. A link to today's slide presentation was included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download it, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the link located there. You can also download the slides by copying the URL on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble, please contact Booklist at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we'll pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the captions icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select Show or Hide Captions from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting Subtitle Settings. And finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates this standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. We have a wonderful program for you today. We'll hear from our friends at Penguin about some wonderful new titles a little later in the program, but first, let's get to the reason why we are all here, our fantastic conversation with today's special guests. We'll begin with a little introduction from each creator about their book, and then we're going to move into a group discussion. And so, now that we have taken care of that technology chat, let's meet our panelists and hear about their books in their own words. I am so pleased to welcome Ray Rose and Allie McKnight, the author and illustrator of Sacred Stone Camp. Ray is an Indigenous and Asian author, and Allie, an artist and illustrator, is an enrolled member of the Shoshone-Bannock tribes. Ray and Allie, please tell us about your powerful picture book.
Hi, this is a story based on a real life day when the Sacred Stone Camp was opened by my aunt LaDonna and Uncle Miles in a stand against energy transfers Dapple Black Snake. And it's told through Lil Donna, who gives everyone the courage to step forward. I hope you enjoy the story.
Bana Nenatnia Ali McKnight, Necessoni Banit, ne Fort Hall, Idaho. Hello, my name is Allie McKnight. I am an enrolled member of the Shoshone-Bannock tribes of Fort Hall, Idaho, and I'm the illustrator for this beautiful book, The Sacred Stone Camp, written by Ray Rose, and it was my honor making the artwork.
Wado, thank you so much, Ray and Allie. I am so excited to talk more about Sacred Stone Camp later. It's such a beautiful and powerful picture book that really empowers children to not only connect with community, but to connect with the land as well. Next, I want to welcome Plains Cree and Taino from Cherokee Cree Nation author Violet Duncan, author of Buffalo Dreamer. Violet, what should the audience know about Buffalo Dreamer?
Thank you so much, Mandi. Danse, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Buffalo Dreamer is about a young 12-year-old taking her summer vacation up on the res, and she finds out that the Indian residential school is all in a buzz. And why? What's going on there? And who attended that? She finds out that it's actually her grandfather. Many of her aunties and uncles attended that school, and she wants to know more information on what's happening at the school and why did the kids have to go there.
Wado Violet, thank you so much. I devoured Buffalo Dreamer. It's such a beautiful book. And every time I get the opportunity to speak with you about it, I learn so much more. And also, you provide such a heart and soul connection to readers every time you talk about this book. So I can't wait to hear more from you on it.
Thank you.
Yes. I'm also excited to hear from Steph Littlebird, an enrolled member of the Grand Ronde Confederated Tribes. Steph, please tell us about You Are the Land.
Shlahayim, everyone. My name is Steph Littlebird. I'm so excited to be here and share my author debut, which is You Are the Land, a sort of journey of a young person learning about their connection to the earth through their family and community. And it's such a special story that I think communicates a lot of really core Indigenous values to a universal audience that I really hope will touch young readers as well as their adult readers as well.
Wado Steph, thank you. I loved You Are the Land. It is, like you said, it just core Indigenous values. You know, we're all, as Native peoples, unique amongst ourselves, diverse amongst ourselves, but there are these threads of connection that run amongst us all. And this idea of belonging to the land, of being in good relationship with the land is one of those shared connections. And this book embodies that. And now we welcome Lakota writer Andrea Page, author of Who Was Wilma Mankiller? Andrea, tell us about this biography.
Hi, everybody. I'm Andrea Page. Greetings from Rochester, New York. Who Was Wilma Mankiller is an illustrated biography, and it's part of the very popular Who Was middle grade series for children. This series highlights significant people or figures, events who have made major contributions in whatever field they're in. Wilma Mankiller was the first female principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. She had a great commitment to her community and her nation and improved education, healthcare, among many other things. Her lived experiences were very diverse, including battling serious health issues while she was working. She's just really inspiring, and I appreciate being here today. It's such a privilege with everybody.
Wado, Andrea, thank you. She is so inspiring, as you said. I grew up hearing stories from my grandma about Wilma Mankiller, and so she always inspired me as a little girl. My grandma was so proud of her, and so I can't wait to hear more about this book as we continue our conversation. Because, you know, I call myself professionally curious. Which is just a fancy way of saying that I'm very nosy. I'm very nosy about how creators, how authors and illustrators make these brilliant works and share them with the world. And so I'm always interested in craft, right? I'm always eager to hear about creators' crafts and how they approach their work. And so my first question is for Steph. Because Steph, I have followed you and your artwork for years. You are one of my favorite artists, and I have long admired your ability to use pop culture. I was telling you earlier, I was using one of your recent pieces featuring Peter Pan. I used it in a class I taught. Your ability to use pop culture and politics and history and traditional knowledge. You show love of the land and love of the people with such vibrancy and depth. And you create art both for adults and now for children. So I've wondered about that. How do you go about creating art for adults versus creating art for children, conveying information to different age groups through words and art, and keeping things accessible but engaging? And so talk us through your processes for creating for adults versus children. How are they similar? How are they different?
Yeah, oh, it was definitely a challenge because I came up through the fine arts world where, you know, your primary audience is adults. And so my work has always been much more political, engaged with, you know, critique of mass media and pop culture through things like appropriation of Disney characters like Pocahontas and Tiger Lily. And so I've been working in that vein for a really long time. And so my aesthetic aesthetic is actually very much like kind of looks like it could be from Disney or something. And so in a way, it lends itself really well to children's books. But I had never really imagined myself as a children's book illustrator until my agent found me on Instagram, and she was like, "Your work would be amazing in picture books." And so I did my first book a couple of years ago, and it has really just transformed my entire life, and I love it so much. I feel like I'm living my highest purpose. And so it is a challenge to think about how I communicate similar ideas to young people, like the idea of protest, the idea of being a responsible steward of the land. And so, like, that's really where I'm challenged the most, I think, because it's easy to talk to adults because I can kind of say whatever I want. But when I'm talking to kids, I really have to think about the most essential elements of my message and really like hone in on those core ideas and make it as strong as possible in terms of its essential messages. And so it's a really good challenge because it makes you think about what the most important parts of your message are.
Oh, I love that. Honing it down to just those core essential elements. You're right. If you just take away everything extraneous and get down to the message of what you want to say, and then providing that to the different audiences, that's really beautiful. And I have to warn the audience, I'm an emotional person. I went and grabbed something to wipe my eyes with as we as we move through our discussion today. And I already got a little bit teary when Steph, you said that you feel like you're living your highest purpose. That's such a gift and such an honor and such a testament to the work that you do. And I know I can't wait to use this book in story time. Yeah, it's wonderful. So Wado, thank you. My next question is for Ray. This story is a tribute, a love letter to the work of LaDonna Brave Bull Allard and her brave stance against the Dakota Access Pipeline. And the book is told from the perspective of a young girl who shares in these responsibilities of standing for the land. And Ray, I am curious about your process of creating this story, which is based on the tireless work of real people to protect the water and the lands that give us all life. And so I'm really curious, Ray, why did you choose to tell this story from the perspective of a child?
Um, because the children are our future, you know, to loosely quote Crazy Horse, you know, we borrow the earth from our children. And so I feel like we'll put our best foot forward. We'll fight for them, but I want them to know that they have the power and they have a future to fight for, and we'll be here to back them up.
Okay, I'm teary once again.
Me too. I always get teary too.
That we're here to back them up, but they have the power. That's one thing that I really appreciated about this book, and we'll talk about this more later, is the sense of community, right? That we're all connected, we're all responsible for one another, but also the agency and empowerment this book gives to children. And yeah, we're borrowing the future from them, and so it's our responsibility to them also to have their backs and support them through this work. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. And then following up on your discussion of writing Sacred Stone Camp, my next question is for Allie. And Allie, I am such a fan of your artwork. Your watercolors they're lush yet vivid, and on every page there's this warmth and love for family. And and you know what, panelists, if you want to turn your cameras on so I can see all of your faces, so I'm not the only one getting teary on camera, it'd make me feel less alone about wiping my tears away. Yes, and Allie, I can think of several images from this book that I would love to frame and hang on my wall. And I wanted to know about your approach to your craft, because this book is based on real people, based on real events. And what is your process like when you're illustrating a book based on real people while also conveying that narrative arc?
Well, first, thank you. You're so kind and so sweet, and I am so grateful for Ray and for her whole family. I felt incredibly honored when approaching this book because LaDonna is a legend, was a legend, is a legend within our community, and hopefully will now be within the entire world because she has left such a huge impact on us. And I think approaching, this character, these characters, um, it I approached it as I would a family portrait. Um, and I just try to keep whenever I create any artwork, I try to be as playful as I can, because I think a lot of the times I took art so seriously growing up, and I was, it has to be perfect, it has to be this. But I think that's why I love watercolor as well, and that's why I chose watercolor for this, is because it forces me to just let it do its thing. It's organic, and I wanted to really embrace the natural world and our nature, our relatives, through that watercolor, through that organic kind of medium. And I think that also translated with LaDonna and with Uncle Miles, Lala Miles, and Lil Donna. They're all very organic in each spread. They're bold, they're vivid through the watercolors, but at the same time, they're kind of flowing there because it's a story. And so we're flowing with our watercolors through each page. And we still hold our mark, we're still bold and bright and vivid through all these colors. But I love the watercolor and letting it tell the story in a way. And so I think that's the reason I choose watercolor for these kinds of stories, is because it lets me, kind of form it a little bit, but it always does its own thing. And it sort of just helps us dance across the page a little bit.
I also love that it's a water-based medium being used in a book about our responsibility to water. Yeah, and so it really, like you said, there's that organic flow. And then also when you said it's a family portrait, I was thinking, and because also it's a portrait of relatives,
Mhm.
and the land and water are our relatives, and they're included in that family portrait. So it's such beautiful work, Ali. Thank you.
Oops.
And my next question is for Andrea. So Andrea, Ali just spoke about illustrating real people. And you had a similar task, narratively, taking the life of Wilma Mankiller, who was a powerful force for change for my tribe, the Cherokee Nation, and then translating an entire life into just over 100 pages. And so I'm so curious about that process. How do you take a complex life with achievements and challenges? And our lives are so complex, and they're not always linear, or they're not in a narrative. They can be circular and back and forth and all sorts of shapes. How do you take that and make it accessible for young readers? And you do it so beautifully, blending history, and I noticed vocabulary that encourages literacy growth, right? We've got these new words, these new concepts that we're introducing to readers, and then also making it engaging, keeping those readers turning the pages. So what is that process like, translating the life of a political figure into a narrative that is informative and engaging, accessible yet challenging, to help kids learn these new concepts? It's a big task. What is that like?
Well, like you said, writing nonfiction is very challenging, and one of my goals is to make sure that I'm as respectful and accurate as I can be because I'm Lakota, not Cherokee. That was one challenge for me, and I really wanted to make sure that, I was doing the best I could. Um, but I also discovered while I was writing my first book, all willy-nilly, all over the place, that I really need a plan when I go to write. And so my first task is to just find out as much information as I can about the subject. And so I just read and research and, I'll go find as many books as I can or magazines, newspaper articles, academic papers, whatever. This time with Wilma, I actually tried for the first time a search on a podcast just to see what came up, and all these things came up. Now, some of them, you have to look at all of your materials and make sure that they're coming from reliable sources. But I did find one podcast that was phenomenal. It was an actual interview with her from, many years ago. And it was a very lengthy interview. I could listen to her tell her stories in her own voice, and it was just so precious. And I kept referring to that and referring to that. And not only that, I found that she was also a writer, an author of several books. So I just kept referring to those. But when you're going through this process, you're looking for something that's going to pull the whole story together, like some kind of golden thread that you can just follow. And that kind of weeds out all the other research that, is important, but maybe not for this particular story. And I found a quote from her where she said something about her identity is always in the context of her community. And that just hit home for me. And so I just grabbed onto that and it just kept sifting through all of it and just kind of writing this narrative story, and a narrative arc has to occur. So I'm looking for the pieces where there's a conflict and then a pursuit of solving that problem. And then there has to be character change at the end. So I organized research pieces together. Um, and then I started writing and I just kept reading and researching and writing. Um, who was the publisher is a work for hire. So they give you very structured instructions about, how you're going to set up the chapters, how many words, what level of reading it's going to be. So I have to be mindful of all that too. So I just really enjoyed this project and I developed such an emotional connection to her, even though I never met her, obviously. But it's just really, she really stuck with me through the last couple years, since I've submitted the manuscript. So I'm so thrilled. Um, and you said such nice things. It really makes a difference. So thank you so much.
Oh, this is moderating panels like this it's one of my happy places because I get to hear from such brilliant people who are doing community-centered work. And when you said that, when she was talking about her identity, that her identity is her community, that is one of those shared threads of connection that run through all our peoples and even in our languages, right? The grammatical structure of our languages shows that we are community-based people. And so I love that. And even because I have a question now, I've got my pen here to write down. What is the name of that podcast? And if you can't remember now, don't worry.
Oh no, it's stuck in my head. It's called
Okay.
Voices of Oklahoma. And they actually have a website where you can go and look at the transcripts of all their interviews and everything too. And I believe hers was from 2009, maybe. I'm guessing on that one. So, Voices of Oklahoma.
That's perfect because I love that you found something that was her voice,
Oh
her
my God.
actual voice, to then bring into this book about her and her own writing, so that humanization part, right? Keeping her fully human, such a beautiful part of this book. So thank you. I really appreciate that, and thanks for sharing the podcast. And then my last question on the topic of craft is for Violet. So Violet, I've had the good fortune, not to brag, but I've had the good fortune to talk to you about Buffalo Dreamer before. This is a deeply personal story that's inspired by your own loved ones that you are sharing with the world. It's such a vulnerable thing to do, and you tell this story with such poignancy and beautiful language. And so I'm curious about how you took these personal stories, these thoughts, these feelings, these worries, and transformed them into this immersive tale. So how were you able to take things so deeply personal and craft them into the story and share that with the world? And what do you hope for the life of this story as children and their caregivers interact with it?
Hi. Thank you so much for your question. I would have to say the very, very, very beginning of this has to go to huge thanks to my parents. They were heavily involved in social justice theater. So that means that we talked about substance abuse, we talked about suicide, we talked about violence all around the dinner table, and nothing was off topic. And because we were so able to have these open and free conversations, me and my husband kept this up with our children, and nothing is off the table. We can talk about everything. And we have this huge range. My youngest right now is 9, and my oldest is 16, but that doesn't it's not just my children at the table, it's nieces and nephews who are younger, aunties and uncles who are older. And so we're all around this table and we're all having these intense conversations, mindful of where everyone is at with their education and understanding. And of course, this topic came up at this time when I was thinking about writing it. It was the unmarked graves that happened in Kamloops. And my kids were like, what is that? What's going on? What does that mean? And we had these really good conversation, and it wasn't just one dinner table conversation. It was when we were sweetgrass picking and berry picking and even brushing the horses. They would just have these questions. They would just come up. And a lot of times they would say, did Mushum go? And yeah, Mushum attended. That's my dad. Yeah, he attended. Did he get to pick sweetgrass? Well, not at your age, but later he did. And how did he learn? Did he know this? Did he always dance powwow? And, they had so many questions because they were involved in culture and dance and language. And to them, it was just so foreign that someone wasn't allowed that, and someone they loved and held so dearly. And so I wanted others to be a part of this conversation or to hear about it. And so my very heart is children's books, but as my children grow up, like I said, they're 9 through 16 now, middle grade seems to be where they are. And it keeps them active participants, and it keeps me learning too, because I didn't get to learn about it until post-secondary, but it gets me to learn on a whole other deeper level. And it really deepens our relationship that we have with my aunties and uncles. And it also lets them know that this happened, but you were an incredible auntie and uncle to me. You were an amazing mom and dad to me. You are fantastic grandparents. And to remind them of they were not what they were exposed to. They are so much more in my world, in my children's world, and they are not survivors. They are warriors. They're language and culture and dancers and artists, and I'm just so proud of them. So this book is a work of love, saying, look at how much you've done, and we just want to make sure that the rest of us know where you were at their age and how you've been able to overcome that, because we're so proud of you and we love you so much. And my children, to say we've overcome this and this is why it should never ever happen again, and how they can be little social justice warriors to make sure, even at 9 years old in the classroom.
Well, I knew it was going to happen. I cried. You always make me cry, Violet, because you get to the heart of things. And, you know, sometimes I don't like using the word resilience because it's often overused when it comes to our experiences, and we've lost so many and we've lost so much, but also the idea that we are still here and that there are these generations continuing on after us, and that we know there are those generations. And you know how I know we know is because y'all are creating books for them. Like the very fact that there are books for our little ones that did not exist when we were little, it shows how secure we are in our futures. And the idea that your children, the experiences of your parents and ancestors, that was such a foreign concept to them. And may it continue to be for all of our children. May they know joy and culture and language, and all of the work that you're doing to preserve that through these books. So thank you. Thank you for that, Violet Wadeau. And now I would like to talk about some of the gorgeous, gorgeous images in these books and the covers as well. So I like to use the whole book approach when it comes to children's literature, looking for cover art and illustrations. And there's beautiful imagery shown in these books. And there's also our languages, that were taken from us, that we were removed from our languages, and now they're resurging. Our languages are coming back, and the land, it loves to hear our languages. And I loved how our languages were woven in. And so we know that including Indigenous languages in children's literature can increase the appreciation and use of those languages. So I wanted to chat with our creators today about both the beautiful illustrations, the power of art, and the power of language. So if the lovely people at Booklist could bring the slides back up on screen, I would like to start with Ray and begin this discussion of art and language with you, because there's a section in Sacred Stone Camp in which there's a prayer in Lakota, and we've got that pulled up on screen, so thank you. And Ray, I would love to hear you talk about the inclusion of this prayer. And it is translated into English, but the Lakota parts of the prayer come first before the English, which I loved. And so why did you choose to include the Lakota language in the form of a prayer in the story?
I'm gonna cry. Sorry. Language is so important to who we are and our connection to each other. And I'm actually Paiute in mine. I married into LaDonna Brable's family in 2003, but as a foster kid, I didn't have a connection with my family. And LaDonna was the first one to embrace me and welcome me into a family. And so that's why I lean more towards Lakota narratives and language, because it's comfort, it's love. And it's so important to me to put that forward for our next generation, that our language is more important, that we are important. In the words, Mitake Oyasin is the actual prayer that I wanted the kids to have, to know that they are connected to me, to everything around them. Yeah, so it was important that the Lakota language went first, because that's where I found home. And that is the language that has taught me love and acceptance of myself as an Indigenous woman. Sorry.
Oh, you never have to apologize for tears and for emotion, Ray. That is it's one of the reasons I really love chatting with Indigenous creators, is because this connection and this emotion and the community, the sense of community and the support that we all have for one another, and this love that shines through. And language, like you said it, language is home. And for so long, so many of us were separated from our languages. And so it's a homecoming. Language learning is a homecoming. So what you've shown on the page here, I see it as a homecoming. And thank you for sharing that with us. Wado, thank you. My next question is for Allie. And Allie, I have to tell you, I had such a hard time choosing one illustration. I went back and forth, and I even cheated a little bit because I chose a 2-page spread. Forgive me, I'm going to keep wiping away the tears as I talk, because I have to fight to hold them back. I went back and forth for ages, and I cheated. I chose a full-page spread. So if we could go to the next image on the slide, because I chose one that has 2 illustrations. And I love the illustration on the left, Allie. It centers, it centers the child as the future. This theme that we've talked about through multiple answers here. And she is the caregiver of the land, the water, and our more than human relatives. And then on the right, I also loved, it shows the people at the camp and the true concept of water is life. And also the diversity, right, within the movement as well. And so talk me through this full-page spread and how it fits with the narrative and where you drew inspiration for these images.
Oh, Ray, you still have me in my feels. So I'll go back to the family portrait. The whole story here is people that we know and love. I feel like we all have similar, aunties and uncles and certain people that are represented in this story in our own lives. And so when approaching the illustrations, I was able to use some pictures and things from Ray's life. But then I also looked to my aunties, my uncles, my cousins, my grandpa, my grandma, and other leaders in our community. And I think I incorporated as many people as I could that represented people that have changed me, have impacted me, and hopefully our readers will see these same kind of characters represented in their life in this story. And so yes, it's a Native family in a certain way, but you see a variety, a diverse people here. And that's hopefully to speak to everyone from all walks of life, to, the child reading it or to the adult that is reading it. Maybe the grandma or grandpa that are reading it too, they see themselves represented here. And that's my goal, here with this story and with all my artwork, I try to make sure that there's representation of us and of people that have impacted our lives in positive ways. Because like we've said over and over and over again, we didn't have that representation growing up. We had Pocahontas and, Peter Pan and things that they weren't drawn or created by us for us, but Steph and Ray and Violet and Andrea, we're and so many other authors and illustrators, we're creating a world that is safe and that is represented and made for us by us. And so these characters, hopefully they are people that are native people, that our native youth can look to, but also people from wherever. And so hopefully, I don't know if I answered the question. Sorry.
You answered the question perfectly, Ali. Yes. It's both representation, but it's also, I see it as an invitation for
Mhm,
others to center these values in their lives as well. That we can all walk in respect for and care for the land and responsibility and be in good relationship. So you absolutely answered it.
You summarized it even more beautifully. So thanks.
You're welcome. I only could do it because I had your beautiful words to draw from.
Oh, you're amazing.
My next question is for Steph, and can we bring up the illustration for You Are the Land? Okay, I'm not exaggerating. I want this on my wall. I love it because it includes space as the land. Because many of our creation stories from many of our nations include stories from space. We're people of the stars as well as people of the land. And so I love it also because space is so often presented to us as a place of the future. And so this illustration to me is Indigenous futurism. And there's so many layers here to analyze. So can you talk us through about the choices you made in this illustration? From having the child's hair be the planets to having space be side by side with the land. How did you conceptualize this?
So, my work, a lot of my work, even outside of children's books, is this idea of trying to represent human connection to the earth. And like, the way that I've found a sort of formula for doing that is combining the human body with natural elements and like sort of cramming them together in some way. And so this is an extension of this idea where I'm trying to make young people make the connection between their physical body with the world around them, and that includes space. That includes, beyond the sky that we sort of sometimes feel, sort of encapsulated within. We are actually citizens of the universe and not just of this place. And so and our cosmology as Indigenous people very much, converses with the stars in all kinds of ways, and we were far more um, aware of those things than they often give us credit for in history. And so, anyway, I love also the idea of Indigenous futurism because that's very much rooted in all of the things that I do, which is this idea that our ideas are often thought of as being in the past, but actually, Indigenous knowledge of the land is the future, and it will be what heals us. Is us reconnecting with that knowledge, reconnecting with ourselves as citizens of the earth and as extensions of the earth. And so, really, I'm always just going back to that idea of like, how do I communicate this feeling that I know a lot of people have, but it's like hard to express, particularly if you don't come from our culture. There's not a lot of language around it. And so I'm always looking for visual metaphors to sort of express that connection.
Citizens of the universe and
Mhm.
a people of the future. And that's such a powerful antidote uh, to the harmful ways we've been portrayed in the past. And I think it really speaks to, this, I think, Ali, you said, for us, by us, this idea that, we're writing about ourselves and that comes through and you can just see how it's good medicine, right? What you're doing, it's this antidote to what's happened in the past. And I just love that idea of people of the future. We're people of the future. Yeah. And my next question is for Andrea. And can we bring up this illustration from Who Was Wilma Mankiller? Um, Andrea, I have to tell you, the book was sitting on my mom's dining room table as I was reading it, and she walked by and she did a double take from the cover because she thought it was my grandma, my Elise. Like they look so much alike, which my grandma would be thrilled to hear that. That would be such a compliment from my grandma, but it would just tickle her to think so that she thought that we confused a picture of Wilma Mankiller for her because she was such an admirer. And I love this illustration because it's such informative detail. You know, she's carrying the basket, and you know, she's the jewelry and what she's wearing. And as Steph just said, a lot of times we're portrayed as bygone relics of history. Or if we're shown in contemporary society, it's as though we have to leave our cultures entirely behind to do so. So I know this is not your artwork. This is the artwork in this book is by Stephen Marchese. But I wanted to hear about what you see in this illustration and how it shows Wilma Mankiller as both someone living traditional values while also being a modern woman.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, thanks for sharing that cute little snippet of your grandma. That's so cute and adorable. I love hearing those things. And you asked some great questions. Holy cow. So I'm glad that you asked me, what do I see? And of course, as a nonfiction writer, I did a little bit of research on, Cherokee traditions with their dress and things like that. So the first thing that stands out to me is that she's standing on kind of like this open land. And to me, this is my interpretation, I feel like that's her homecoming. Like she's standing on her Mankiller Flats land, and that's what she's grounded in when she's coming back home, or even, when she was far away. She was always connected to her family. And the family's land is, I think I mentioned that, Mankiller Flats. So it grounds her identity right away. Her Cherokee dress looks like the Cherokee Terror dress, which is the traditional dress for like modern day Cherokee women. And the dress connects their Cherokee history and honors their ancestors, I guess, especially the ones on the Trail of Tears. So it has a connection to modern day young people wearing the dresses and then kind of honoring the past challenges. She's also, it looks like she's wearing pucker toe moccasins, which is that Southeast style, which is the effort to stay committed to, that particular tradition and culture. The basket that she's carrying, I found out that young children today are learning how to weave baskets in their community classes. So, that tradition is carrying on with the younger generation. Um, I can't really tell about the necklace and her jewelry, but I did find out that there's jewelry made of corn beads, which is also again kind of a respect or a reminder of the resilience of the people on the Trail of Tears. And a lot of jewelry is made from the corn beads today again, so it's bringing it forward. So overall, as her being a modern day leader, this is a nod to her family, a nod to her tribe, a nod to her community, her history. And I'm glad to see that the illustrator took the time to take a look at these Cherokee traditions too, to include in the illustrations throughout. And I think for young readers, this is going to help them build confidence because they're recognizing their own culture in a book for them, which is, like you said before, I never had that growing up. It was always people of the past, and it was really hard to connect to any of that. So pretty fascinating, all the information you find out.
Yes, and all the information that can be conveyed in artwork, and the layers. And so thank you for talking about the layers of meaning in there and the things that we can recognize that I look at that and I see things that are so familiar. And then I'm thinking about how, what we wear, uh, its connection to our peoples, but also I was thinking to one another, like the earrings I'm wearing today were beaded by my friend Jessica Bascom, and she's Klamath and Cherokee. And so I'm wearing, and I have a little connection with a friend and her artwork and the information there. And it is a language. Um, our cultural expressions are a language of their own, and we know how to read them, to read those, the language of cultural expression. And so speaking of language, I would like to talk about the use of language on the cover of Buffalo Dreamer. So if we could move to that slide. So Violet, I love all the layers from the story that are on the cover. And so we see a girl, it could be Buffalo Dreamer, maybe Summer, and we see a buffalo, and the residential school is in the background. It's looming there, but it's not centered. And also in the upper left-hand corner, below the title, we see the Plains Cree language. Right below the English words Buffalo Dreamer. And one thing I noticed about the inclusion of Plains Cree on here, it's not transliterated. And so I loved that. It's like one of those things, if you know, you know. And if you don't know, you know, it's an invitation in to learn. And how did the inclusion of language on the cover come about? And how does it speak to the linguistic and cultural and human survival as portrayed in Buffalo Dreamer?
So what's really important is I always go to my Auntie Daisy. She has her master's in the Cree language. And it's this huge language revitalization that's happening in my communities and in many communities because of the hard work of my parents' generation and my grandparents' generation to try to bring back our culture and ceremony and dance. But what's not common knowledge is that my Auntie Daisy is a residential school survivor, and her bringing her wealth of knowledge of the language, who would have known that a survivor would have kind of come full circle to be a part of this cover to now engage and help other young people learn about what she went through as a young girl. And if you just open the book, when people are like, what does that say? Right on the inside, 2 pages in, it says, Paswawi mustos opwatwatam. The translation's on the inside, but like you said, it's an open invitation to go further. You got to open those pages. You got to learn a little bit more. I really, really love the buffalo on this page. The Buffalo Nation to many different Plains nations was the means of survival. It was food, clothing, shelter, tools. It was in the bitter cold of winter, it would keep us warm. In the hot summer times, we would have a water bottle made of the bladder. It was our homes. Our teepees were made of buffalo hides. So when we look at the teepee, I see community. I see where we come from. And so it was an easy target because as Native peoples in my area, when we relied so heavily on it, and because they were so abundant, and you couldn't kill us through warfare, and you couldn't kill us through all the different ways of trying to battle many Native nations. They knew it was the Buffalo Nation. It was that community that we surrounded ourselves with that would ultimately be our downfall, because we needed the buffalo. And it reminds us, I think of the buffalo in the wintertime and when the hot breath is coming out, and I know that we see the heart as the home fire. And so when we see buffalo, it means family and community. And when we have this young girl looking back, it's that connection. It's that return to community, return to the land, return to family. And so this cover has just so many meanings for me, woven within it. But also, as a young person, I would have flipped out seeing the language written on any book. And I did. I seen a couple of us, we have syllabics on the covers, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is for me. And so I wanted that visceral reaction to other young people saying and seeing syllabics written there. And of course, it's phonetic. If you know how to say it, then you know how to say it, and you know that it's just the title of the book, Buffalo Dreamer, in the Cree language. And I kind of wanted to have that kind of that secret code that we have, and that really, as our language comes back to us, and as we're learning it through syllabics, to have that say, "Hey, this book is for you. This is a story about us."
Yes, as we said earlier in the panel, language is a homecoming, and it's an invitation home. Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful, and all of the and it just shows the amount of work and knowledge that goes into crafting every aspect of these books. And then I also love, you know, the language of the buffalo, you know, of our more than human relatives. You talk about what that signals to us too. It's not just the information is not just in the words or in the syllabics. It's in every single aspect, and everything is so thoughtfully curated to signal this is for you. This is for you, and you are welcome home. I think there's themes that are emerging, from this panel. It's home and language and community, and it's also land. So we're going to do this has flown by, if you can believe it. We only have 11 minutes, or well, actually, really only about 6 minutes left for our discussion time. I can't even believe it. So I've got just a quick kind of lightning style question for each of our panelists on the theme of land. Because, to borrow from the title of Steph's picture book, we are the land, right? The land is a place-based series of relationships, and we have responsibilities to it just as we do to all of our relationships. So lightning style, quick question, like a minute answer each. I want to talk about land and how it's present in each of these books. So Andrea, I'll start with you. How does responsibility to the land emerge in the life and work of Wilma Mankiller?
Well, like I said, she's very connected to Mankiller Flats, and once she got back there, she immersed herself in her work, preserving the language and the culture. But she also helped her community help each other, and they brought water into these very impoverished areas, and that was a huge feat. So even though she led this whole complex life and left behind this amazing legacy, one of the things that she did do by all of her work, collectively, is I believe she inspired her daughters, her two daughters, but also other young women to dream big. And this was all because she was tied to her family's land, Mankiller Flats.
We have those roots, and they can help us grow. Yes. And then Violet, what are the connections to the land? And you talked about the Buffalo relatives, but what are the connections to the land and more than human relatives in Buffalo Dreamer?
So I really wanted to make sure that the heavy topics and discussions were sandwiched in to our connection that we have with the land, just like they were when we were talking about it around the dinner table, that we would have opportunity to go connect. And it's not just berry picking because I love Saskatoon berries. It's having that connection that this is what my ancestors did, riding on the horses, saying this is my relative, drinking water from our lake. It's that connection that says that we are still here. We are still a part of the land. We belong to the land. The land doesn't belong to us. And I wanted to make sure that readers felt that love of it, not just community with relatives, but community with the land, and knowing that our names have that significant meaning to land. Like my Cree name is Old Sky Woman, but in English it translates to that. In the language, it actually translates to a specific time of day. It actually is the golden hour, around like in the evening when it's all goldeny. That is my name. And so when I'm out in the golden hour and I'm like, wow, this is the name that I was given, how do you even translate that? And so when we're learning about our really intense history, I'm reminded just by my name that this is me. This is me all around me. This is my name. This is my relative when I drink my water and it replenishes me. And I pick the berries and I turn it into gifts for other relatives, that we are all connected through land, through water, through name.
Oh, that's such a perfect metaphor for our connection to land. Because how do you translate it? It's being on the land. It's the land translates it for you. The land is who tells you the meaning. Yes, um, absolutely. And then Allie, I'm curious about how the land informs your work. Are there places you go on the land that you go to for inspiration, or specific teachings that you turn to in your approach to painting? Ones that you can share with a wide audience.
So they're intertwined, and it's no secret. I actually have a favorite place on my reservation. It's called the Bottoms, and it's actually just a bunch of waterways that are connected to the Snake River. And we actually have our buffalo herd out on the bottoms. Some of them, our lazy ones, hang out in the corrals, and they know because we are their stewards, and we have certain tribal members that go out and feed them every morning. So they hang out there, but our big guys are up in the mountains. And so I like to drive around the bottoms, and I take my kids with me, and we usually have picnics, and they know that when we go out, we always say prayer and we leave offerings when we're out there, because they know that, our our little people, our animals, and other protectors are out there. They're keeping the land safe, they're nourishing the land, and that we give back to the land. We don't take from it. And so those are kind of like what fuel my practices in a way. And that's how I am trying to teach my babies to stay connected and give back, and also teach myself. So that's just a little bit about how I try to stay connected.
And I love the idea of, as you're teaching your babies, you're teaching yourself, because we're never done learning and we're never done growing. There's still that little one inside us that always needs to learn. Yes. And Ray, what do you hope children and their caregivers take away about their relationship with the land and water from your story, from Sacred
So,
Stone?
sorry. So, I work with some behavioral kids, Native kids in non-Native homes, and what I teach them about the land is, the land is there for you. As adults, as humans, we'll fail you at times. We won't be there. But the land, the plants, those will always be there. You can always sit with them and find comfort in the land, because that's our relative, that's the Rock Nation, the oldest nation, and it is there for you when no one else is. I don't know if that answers your question.
That answers my question so beautifully, Ray, because whenever I have questions that I don't know how to answer, I go to the land, and the land tells me. It tells me the right thing to do. The land is there. Yes, so I understand exactly what you're trying to say. And excuse me, my voice gave out there for a second. Wow, and I got to blink here because I can't see I can't see the screen with the tears. Steph, I was so excited when I saw the title of your book. And so I want to know, what inspired you to tell children they are the land? Just the title is so powerful.
Yeah, I'm blessed to come from a community, to come from a tribe that teaches me about my connection to the land. And we have a term that we use in the Pacific Northwest. We call ourselves placekeepers. And that means that we are responsible for the land we come from. We are responsible for keeping it and maintaining it in a way that provides abundance for future generations. And I'm just lucky that I learned that from my community, but that's true of all human beings, that we can all be placekeepers. And so the book is really about taking these ideas of being a placekeeper and being a responsible steward of the land, and really like translating that for all people, because I think a lot of problems that we are facing in this world today is because of our disconnection from the land. And what I've learned from all of the work that I make is that the message of "you are the land" is one of the most that resonates with all of my audience, no matter their age. And so I'm really hoping that it will connect to people on a heart level and remind them of their connection, and hopefully inspire them to deepen that connection.
Wado, thank you so much, Steph. And thank you to everyone on the panel today. I've learned so much. I cried, as you can clearly see. And this idea of, I think what I see in all of these books, it's both saying to our Indigenous children, you are seen. You are seen to our Indigenous children. And it's saying to non-Indigenous children, you are invited. You are invited, as you said, Steph, to be a placekeeper, to have these connections with your own community and with the land. So thank you for these books that show children they're seen, and then also invite children in to these beautiful, beautiful works of creation. Wado, thank you so much to our speakers. Thank you to all of the librarians and educators for joining us today. I'm going to say Donadago Ha'i until we meet again. And now, Gabby, I ate into your time and I apologize. I'm going to hand it off to Gabby from Penguin Young Readers, who has exciting information to share with you all. Wado, thank you.
It is truly the best reason to have my time, quote unquote, eaten. Mandi, thank you so much for moderating this fantastic panel. We are so grateful for your time and effort, and a huge thank you to our creators, Ray, Ali, Steph, Violet, and Andrea, for taking the time and sharing so much about your incredible books. You couldn't see me, but I really was tearing up with you all, and I'm so grateful to be able to hear and learn from you. If I don't stop myself, I will wax poetic about these folks endlessly. So that being said, if we haven't had the pleasure of meeting before, hi everyone, my name is Gabby Paez. I use she, her, or ella pronouns, and I'm a member of the Penguin School and Library marketing team. We genuinely look forward to moments like Native American Heritage Month, where we have some great opportunities to uplift many stories, voices, and creators like the ones you just heard from. But I urge you to remain enthusiastic and continue to highlight these books on your shelves and with your readers all year round. I hope you'll stick with us for just a tiny bit longer. I promise I'll be speedy, as I now share some Native American and Indigenous titles that have come out in the past few years that are perfect for, yes, November, but also a myriad of moments, lessons, and roundups throughout the year. Next slide, please. I'm kicking things off with a reminder that Steph Littlebird's You Are the Land is officially on shelves on February 24th of next year, and that Violet Duncan's Buffalo Dreamer will come out in paperback on June 16th of next year. Next is Brave. You might recognize this art by Wishoyo Alvitre, who illustrated Tracy Sorrell's At the Mountain Base. She's a Tongva Scots Gaelic comic book artist, and Brave is the first book that she has both written and illustrated. Wishoyo wished she could join the panel today and speak directly to Brave, but Penguin is happy to at least be able to offer this surprise sweepstakes in her absence. If you scan the QR code on the screen, you can enter to be one of 50 live attendees of today's webinar to win a free copy of Brave. If you or a couple of you ask about the link in the Q&A, our friends at Booklist will try and drop the link in as an answer. Next slide, please. In this picture book, the boy's mom combs his hair every morning and he winces from the tugging. And at school, he's teased for his braid. But he remembers the stories of how his father and grandpa were forced to cut their hair and forbidden from practicing their traditions when they were young. Next slide, please. This powerful picture book examines the traumatic history of colonization and reclaims Native pride in long hair, delivering a very tender father-son story. And next is Contenders. This came out in 2023, but it does feel quite timely with the World Series literally having just wrapped up this past weekend. It won a 2024 American Indian Youth Literature Honor, amongst other amazing accolades. If you aren't familiar with this picture book, it brings John Myers and Charles Bender, two Native pro baseball players, to new generations. Next slide. It gorgeously is illustrated by Aragon Starr and showcases how John and Charles didn't let their supposed rivalry or the racism they faced stop them. Next slide. In a starred review, Kirkus described Contenders as a lesser known but significant encounter with all two current resonances. I really do encourage you all to check this one out. Our next title is also by Tracy Sorrell, but this time with stunning illustrations from Caldecott medalist Michaela Goad. Next slide. With warm, expansive, and expressive art and spare lyrical prose, the story of a young girl's move toward rather than away from home unfolds in a beautiful ode to Native American traditions and family. Next slide. It serves as a positive portrayal of rural life, putting immense detail into the landscape, plants, animals, and houses that make up the Cherokee reservation where the main character is moving to. And instead of longing or sadness, it focuses on the joy of moving back to their ancestral land. Kirkus said in a starred review, this is an evocative, heartwarming testament to the power of home and community. The following title is perfect for older readers. It is a young adult nonfiction adaptation that came out in 2023. In The Heartbeat of Wounded Knee, David Truer argues that Native American culture is far from defeated. Rather, it is thriving now as much as it was 100 years ago. I think this book is best described by a Publishers Weekly starred review, where they say that using approachable language and an eye-opening firsthand account, Truer unfailingly puts Indigenous people at the center of their own history to prove that, quote, Indian cultures are not dead and our civilizations have not been destroyed, unquote. Next. And last but not least is a loving shout out to 3 of our She Persisted series, Deb Holland by Laurel Goodluck, WILMA MANKILLER by Tracy Sorrell, and Maria Tallchief by Christine Day. Each of these books is an American Indian Youth Literature Honor. The She Persisted series are chapter books about women who spoke up and rose up against all odds, like these 3 women. And next slide. It would be remiss of me not to call out some places that you can stay with Penguin after this webinar. Please be sure to follow us if you don't already. We share information about new titles, guides, sneak peeks, and other fun stuff every day and love connecting with you all. I do have another QR code on the screen for our newsletter that you can access after the webinar if needed. And if you're looking for more book buzzes from us on different topics, please visit our Vimeo. And lastly, for me, I swear, is one more QR code on the next slide. You can use this one to access more Native American and Indigenous voices and stories from Penguin Young Readers for all ages and readers. Thank you once again to Mandi and our incredible creators, and thank you all for joining us today. I'm handing it over back to Booklist to close us out.
Thank you so much, Gabby. And of course, another huge thank you to Mandi and our special guests, Ray, Allie, Violet, Steph, and Andrea. There were lots of beautiful words of thanks in the Q&A, and we'll be sure to pass those along to our panelists tomorrow. And tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's video recording, slide presentation, and a certificate of completion. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit www.booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones like those you see here. You can also find out about the latest webinars on our social channels. Visit us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Blue Sky. Thanks so much again for joining us for today's webinar. One more huge thank you to our panelists, our moderator, and to our sponsor, the Penguin Young Readers School and Library team. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.